Hello and welcome to Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. In each episode of the show, we hear the insightful confessions of a successful leader who wants to inspire others to live their professional and personal dreams. I am always keen to hear your feedback, particularly in relation to the kinds of leaders you would like me to invite onto the show in future. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the rich insights from our special guest. Hello and welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. I'm delighted that Guy Wolstencroft has joined me on the show today. Guy, welcome.
Welcome, Andrew. Thank you so much. And what an honour to have a chat with you this afternoon. So I really appreciate the invite. I'm looking forward to the next 35 minutes and seeing where we go.
Excellent. So am I. I'm really looking forward to hearing your journey. We always start by asking our guest a little bit about themselves, just introducing about who they are and where their current focus is. So it'd be great if you could just take us through that.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah. Northwest based in Cheshire, in a beautiful town called Knutsford. And I've been here for most of my life. And it's a pleasure to live here. I thrive in it. Lots of friends and family around here, grown up around here. Very passionate about the town and its people as well. Early 50s. No, actually not. I'm lying. Mid 50s. I just took the VAT off it. So yeah, mid 50s, blissfully married, celebrated 25 years this year. Amazing children that are happy, content, full of life. And I have, while we're on this podcast, a business owner. My sixth one, built, created, and sold half a dozen businesses. And I'll continue to do that again in a process of another one at the moment. And even more excited that I've just started another journey with an AI product that is going to be globally successful. So immensely excited about doing that. So yeah, anything that I do, completely throw myself into it. If I'm going to do something, I've got to be passionate about it. I've got to be enthusiastic about it. And I've got to enjoy the journey as well, because if you enjoy it, you're going to do a better job with it. So that's what my sort of background is in life.
Thank you. And what I also love to ask as a follow-up is, obviously lots of CEOs, founders, people that have been very successful growing businesses put a lot of hard work into what they do. And yet some of them have these hobbies which people don't know about, or interests or passions. If they had a bit more time, they might actually spend more time in. So what is with you? If you had a bit more time, what other things would you pursue?
Well, I think you create time. It's what's really important to you. You know, it's really important to you having a long sleep, getting up late, scrolling, or is it you're going to go out there and do something? And I think, in my life, it is packed, it's fun-filled, do lots of things. Last night, I took my 92nd flight of the year. Got various businesses this year as well. I've watched my daughter compete successfully. She's a double British rowing champion. I've never missed a race with her. One thing that annoyed me is that she was at Henley this year. She was competing at that, and I was riding the Tour de France. I completed it in 2021, so I did all 21 stages, and this year I could only do 9 because they'd put Royal Henley on in the middle of me doing the Tour de France. So incredibly inconsiderate of them, but I didn't want to miss that. So I finished stage 9, came back, spent the week down with her, cheering her on from the riverside. And if I'm going to do something, I've got to make it big. I've got to make it really challenging. I like it when people say there's no chance you can do that. And that's what drives me on. So cycling, I got into it a few years ago. So if I'm going to cycle, what's the biggest event you can do? Well, it's a Tour de France. What's the most famous cycling event in the world? It's a Tour de France. What's one of the hardest endurance events in the world? Well, it's a Tour de France. I've got to do all the Tour de France. So I did that with a small team, successfully raised 1.3 million for cure leukemia. And I was more proud of doing that than actually finish the race, because if you're going to start something, you do everything you can to get over the finishing line. And I had zero qualms about getting my back wheel over that finishing line, because as soon as I started doing it, I knew that was a goal and I was going to complete that. I'm not a traditional cyclist. I'm an ex-rugby player. I like to say 6'5". I think I've shrunk a little bit since then. So maybe 6'4". 110, 115 kgs. So I've got to haul my gigantic backside over the big cols and in the Alps and in the Pyrenees. And I'm the only bloke in the history of the Tour de France to finish it that was fatter at the end than he was at the beginning. Absolutely. One claim that I never wanted, never thought I'd wish for. I thought I was going to come back and look like Peter Crouch because I thought I'd just be tall and lean, and I came back bigger than I was. And my wife said to me, "Did you actually do it?" But yes, I did. But for some reason, infuriatingly, I didn't come back with the ripped cheekbones and a six-pack on my back. Anyway, glad to raise the money, which was the main thing.
And we're already getting a great picture of, you, your life, the kind of challenges that you take on. And of course, that came from somewhere, which is where we're going to go now. So let's go back, way back, and for you to tell us a little bit about what was it you think that has shaped this leadership style, particularly your earlier sort of years when you started getting into work itself. Just talk us back in terms of the childhood and what kind of experiences you had.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard chats to other incredible people on your podcast, and well done for getting such a wide band of elite people on here. And I feel very humbled to be to be on here. And humble is not something I used to. It's a bit of an alien feeling to me. So yeah, looking back on it, and it's about the only sort of question I've dwelled on in the sort of pre-chat we've had about this. Growing up, I had this most incredible, amazing mother. She was just an epic lady. Small, 5'2", first one from Lee in Lancashire that managed to get to grammar school. From there, the first one that went into further education, and then she became a teacher, and she taught in really rough schools in the East End of London. And she was under 7 stone, tiny, but she had an incredible mean right arm, throwing a blackboard duster, and could hit people from the back of the classroom when they got 45 kids in there. So an amazing, powerful woman, incredible. And I think the only chink in her armor was the bloke she married, who was actually myself and my sister's father, because I think his best attributes was he's a complete waste of space, bit of a vile human being. All the worst attributes you could have in a person, he had them in abundance, and they're his best parts. He abandoned us when I was a young child, and my sister was just a baby. Still around, I've been back many a time trying to reach out to him. I'd love to have had a father figure. I'd love to have seen someone on the touchline watching me play sport, which I was lucky enough to play to a high level. I'd love to have gone for a drink with a father figure. I'd love to have, been able to walk a dog, get him to name my children. Doesn't want to know. Hasn't done for decades. Same with my sister, who had a horrific crash a couple of years ago and nearly died. Knew about it. He didn't even reach out to her then. Apparently he lives in the next village. I don't know him, don't see him. I'm comfortable and content with it because I've reached out many times. No comeback on it. But I don't dwell on it. I'm sure that's had an impact on me, but I can't change. I can't change him. Can't change, what a diabolical state he left my mother in. That's not got anything to do with me. What I can do, I can change what happens to my mum, for now and in the future. Unfortunately, we lost her just over 2 years ago, and it was devastating. But then I think, all those just diabolical attributes that bloke's got, I make sure I don't have any of those. So I'm grateful that he was that awful person, because I think it's made me into a better one. Because, I want to get involved with my children. I want to be heavily involved there. My kids don't care how busy I worked when I was growing up, or how many flights I took, or if I'm on a call, or and they're playing in the bath, I'm having a great time. I don't want to be on the call. I want to be I want to be in there, and with the mum, playing with a Fisher Price submarine or whatever it was, and to do that, and literally nothing could have been too much for me, because that's what I wanted when I was a child. And not having it, that might have driven me more to be more involved in that. My children now are 25 and 20, and we're still incredibly close. I love the company, thrive on, listening to them and the friends, and sat around the table, and they've got different values, different opinions, different generation. They've got these incredible lives ahead of them, and I've always wanted the opportunity to say to my wife or my children, or my family, yes or no, because it was the right thing to do, not because something that I couldn't provide for them, or I'd let them down with, or I'd failed in life. So have I got that opportunity to say yes because it's the right thing to do? or no, because that's also the right thing to do. I've got that choice. So that has always been a huge driving point for me. One other thing that I do, don't dwell on the past. I speak to a lot of people. People have their own story, and I find it fascinating. I love listening to people's life stories. Everybody has challenges in life, and it's also that internal voice about how big you make those challenges. So I'm talking about it now. I'm talking about this bloke who apparently lives in a village half a dozen miles down the road. Never think about him. Doesn't cross my mind. Never say his word. Never use the D word with the ad at the end of it. Children don't know about him. I'm happy with that. What I do, I think about now and for the future. I'm in an absolutely blessed position to be in at the moment. I'm in the middle of what I've always wanted to be. Beautifully successful in the fact that I can decide to go and to do something if I want to because I've got my health. And I've been in positions where I've not had that. I bust my back. I was lying in a bed. I had 2 operations on it. The surgeon, who was actually a friend of mine, I said, look, I've hurt my back. It's a bit weird. I can't put my foot up. I'm actually lying in the fetal position. I'm running Mont Blanc Marathon, which is the toughest one in Europe. I'm doing that in 8 days. Can you just give me an injection and we'll sort me out afterwards? And he's going, Guy, I said, I need to operate on you today. It's about you being able to walk around the garden with your kids. I'm like, what? He said, it's a serious one. You burst this in the back. You've got severe nerve damage. It's about you being able to walk. I went, you're joking. He said, no, we've got to get you in. And I said, well, how bad is it? He said, well, we want you to be able to walk around the garden. Okay, well, if you get me upright, I will do an Ironman and I'll give you the medal. Because if he gets me upright, then I'll learn to swim, I'll learn to ride a bike, and I'll shuffle around the course. And thankfully, I had the operation, lay in a bed for 3 months, staring at a ceiling, another operation, and then I spent 12 or 18 months literally having physio every day. I had some policy and it had, I looked at this, I had £10,000 of private physio. I burnt through that in a few months. I joined a gym that had a pool that you could walk up and down in, so I did that every day. Sarah Rugby Club were brilliant. They took me back on as a player, and they were giving me physio. So I built it up and up and up. And after a year, I started doing a bit of swimming and moving around. And then actually 2 years to the day, and I didn't know it was to the day, it was only afterwards, I signed up and did Austria Ironman. And rather than asking people for money, yes, because I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to see somebody and go, hi, Andrew, really nice to meet you. Great. Thanks for that chat. Great stuff. By the way, can you give me a tenner for me to go do something I want to do? I was like, well, okay, can do that. Take a tenner out of your wallet, tap and go. Doesn't really mean that much to you. And so I was lying in bed one night. I thought, I've got to make something a bit more of this. What can I do? How can I help more people? Then I thought, okay, why don't I ask people to donate a pint of the blood? It's tangible. It'll get people out there. So right, let's have this. Donate a pint of blood. I quite like that idea. 10 pints. I reckon if I can get people to donate 10 pints, that'd be quite easy. 100 pints. That's going to be a challenge. Right, okay. I know what I'm going to do. Right, I'll try and do 1,000 pints. I've got 40 days to do it. Right, 1,001 pints. Right, 1,001 pints. So this was back in, when did I do this? Did that back in 2014, so 10 years ago. So I set up a campaign, fancy sharing a pint. Big guy, played rugby, love a beer, love being a centre of attention, love telling people stories. All my mates are bored to death of them. I've heard them so many times, so I've got to get new mates, so I've got a new audience. And I went out and went everywhere with this to donate a pint of blood. Chris Evans, the sort of local DJ, he was brilliant. He picked up on this and he promoted it. And it just rocketed. It absolutely went wild. People just picked up on it. And then I started thinking, how can I get this a bit more momentum? And then it was like, donate with a mate. So I thought, if you can take someone along with you, that's 2 pints rather than just a 1 pint. So I'm doubling my numbers. And then what I hadn't realised was that the people that had been donated a pint of blood, and you really want a pint of blood if you're in trouble. It's not something you think, oh, do you know what? Friday evening at the moment, next Tuesday, I could do with a pint of blood. Where do I go? Is there an app I can go to? Can I book myself in? You're in trouble. You've either got a lot goes to cancer sufferers. You've been in a horrendous crash. You've just given birth. You're not really aware that you're giving a pint of blood. And then we had this campaign and people were emailing me, I've done it. And I'd go back and I wouldn't listen to people's excuses. I got no interest in that. I just get white noise. I get tinnitus, and people would come up to me and said, I'd love to do that. I'm scared of needles. I would go, I'm normally quite a cool person, but I'd go ballistic about that. It's tiny. It's like clipping your nails. If you were lying there and needed a pint of blood, you'd give it. So people started giving it. I said, well, if you can't do it yourself, you've been given some blood, fantastic. You've had that. Somebody's volunteered and done it. Replace yourself with somebody that can. Go ask somebody, one of your friends, one of your family, someone you work with, someone you bump into, someone at the bus stop, someone on the train. Ask them to go and do it instead of you. So this got a lot of traction behind it. And I sort of got known as a sort of blood guy. So the email I was getting from people who had actually received blood and they couldn't thank anybody. And that was compelling, heartwarming, heartbreaking, because there was a story about it. So I'd come home for a day, right, what my numbers like, what they emailed, how many people have done it, how many taken a mate. But it was the stories of people that wanted to thank somebody and tell me about it, or their partner. And that was hard, because I was so attached to it. I was thinking about it all day, every day, lying awake at night time. How can I get more? How can I get more? Got in touch with the National Blood Agency. They were great. They jumped on it as well. And then we sort of stopped count, because we got over 18,000 people on it. And then people in other countries were saying, oh, someone from New Zealand, how much does it cost to go and do this? Can I borrow this campaign? It don't cost anything. It's just lying in bed at night time thinking about it. Just do it. Get it into other countries. And that's been a great journey. So I sort of followed that. And then I somehow got around that Ironman in Austria. And they gave me the medal at the end of it. I remember taking it off and writing a letter out to my surgeon, because it wasn't mine. He'd done the hardest bit. He'd got me to the start line. All I had to do was spend a few hours just sweating a bit and, high-fiving loads of people in the crowd, and just at the end of it, getting the medal. It wasn't mine, it was his. So I wrote in this letter, dropped the medal in there, sealed up the envelope, put it in the post and sent it out to him. I got a beautiful letter back from him. It meant a lot to him and it meant a lot to me. But thankfully, he sent me the medal back. And I said I did know him. And I think if he hadn't done, I've had a word with him anyways. I only sent it to you just to have a look at. You might have whizzed it back to me. But anyway, it did. But I don't even know where that medal is at the moment. It wasn't about that. It's about the story, the memories of getting over the line. It was a trinket for part of the big journey.
Yeah, and it's lovely to hear you in terms of speaking from this place of maturity now about the journey. And, we're still hearing about this ambition and doing the biggest thing that you can to make the biggest impact. What I'm really interested in is when you weren't as mature and you were in your 20s, having experienced what you experienced back at home. And that creates this blueprint for you to be the person that you are in terms of this drive. And sometimes that manifests in ways, particularly as we're learning in leadership and management, that doesn't always necessarily help us. So when did you notice that what was driving you to be like that and wasn't necessarily always helping you in certain situations?
Yeah, good question. I mean, you look back in your 20s and, one thing that happens every decade is that you develop, you mature and you learn from it. One thing I found just really helpful was just observing and listening to people. I don't dwell on negativity. I can't stand it. People start talking negative like that. I'm just not interested. So all the positive ones, and I just look at, I'm very blessed. I've got a great network of amazing friends I've known for a long time. We're very much the same ilk, and these challenges that they'll do, or the successful way they'll start businesses. I'd want to learn. What's your driver? What made you do this? What have you found that's worked for you? What didn't work? And some of the best learnings at that age, because you do things like that and you don't really think too much about them. Oh, this will work, and then you try and make it work and create as much as possible. And I think the biggest learnings are what doesn't work. If I look back and I still do it now, I'm not interested in what my business is good at or what the people are good at. It's I want to know that those chinks, those little Achilles heels, the bits that's not that successful, how can we improve those? And I think that comes back from from observing and listening to people. I was very lucky, I think, and I really thought of this in the last few years, is that a lot of my good close friends, their parents took me under the wing. They looked out for me. as in the fathers, would come and, if we're playing a game of rugby or we're going out for a few beers afterwards, they'd all be buying me an extra pint or, pick up a curry on the way home. Or another two great friends, Ben and Ben, both their parents, they were just adored them. Had stayed at the house all the time. They'd feed me, they'd just look after me, and they were just, I think, just taking care of me and giving me maybe those life skills that I hadn't got from other people. And and those are, unfortunately, both their fathers aren't here now, but I'd love to go back and just sit on the park bench with them and just sort of say, this is what I'm doing now. This is what I've done. I've only done this because I remember you saying this to me years ago. One of my friends, one of my best mates, Ben, his dad, he had his own business. And I always remember him telling, he came back and was telling the story. He wasn't telling me, it was just in general, that he'd had a go at someone at work because they'd had a supplier come in and they'd been served a cup of tea with a chip in the mug. I didn't think anything of it. And he'd gone bananas about this. He said, look, we've got standards at my workplace. We don't do anything that's not 100%. If that chip's in that cup, throw it away. We get a new one. We serve them the best cup that you can have. And in my businesses now, we have China teapots, China cups, nice proper cafetières. It's Royal Dalton, it's Blue Spode. It's something my mum wanted to collect when she was, much younger. And so it always reminds me, Mum, when we get these out, every time I get a comment, every time. Oh, it's lovely to be served in a nice teacup, nice cafetière. So that reminds me of Mum, and it reminds me of Ken Smith, Ben, my best mate's dad, who, we lost a few years ago. So that was something I'd heard 30 odd years ago, my 20s, and those things sort of stick with you. And it might only seem a bit, but those are the minuscule ones that make the difference. And so, I think in that sort of age, you just keep your eyes and ears open, and just listen, and then you don't know when you're going to tap into them or lean back on them, but they're in that mind somewhere, and they come out.
Absolutely. And again, on the show, we've had plenty of people on. You've heard a few of them as well, where they've overcome, a setback. We get them. So for you, what do you think has been the biggest professional setback you've had during your career?
Far is I had this idea for this business. It was wonderful. It was going to make me a gazillionaire. Me and Elon, he would have been working for me. It's going to be fantastic. Global domination, wonderful. Dear. And it's like most things in life. You look at it, and it might cost a little bit more and take a little bit longer to get there. But that little bit more was sort of 10x on both time and money. And so from making millions, nearly lost millions on it. I know it's tough because you have that internal conversation at 3 a.m, and you're lying there, and you're just like, I've got huge bills to come out, and there's nothing in the till. I've desperately got to get this over the line. What can I do to do it? And so you can either stay under the duvet, pull that duvet over your shoulder, start moping around, or you can roll your sleeves up and say, right, this is what we're going to do. Same on the rugby pitch. You could have been 5 points down. You're playing with your mates, last 2 or 3 minutes, and absolutely know you're going to win, because either give me the ball, give it to one of my mates who's outstanding players, and I'll support him all the way. Get over the finish line, the whistle goes, you look up at the scoreboard, and you've won. The games you remember, all the hard things. And exactly the same with the business. I was coming into injury time. We were way behind on the scoreboard. We were just about to get knocked out, and you could lose everything. So it was either duvet over the shoulder, close their eyes, start moping around, or do you know what? Let's give it a go. Let's run with the ball. Let's do a different play. Maybe something we've been doing the previous 78 minutes has not worked out. Let's look at a different technique, different tactics. And thankfully, we managed just to crawl over the line. And from thinking it was going to be super successful, it wasn't. I managed just about to clear it away. But wow, did I learn so much from that. That was the gazillions that I didn't make. Hopefully that'll make the gazillions that are coming up in the future. And I learned more on that from the businesses that you build, you grow, you're happy with, you sell, you move on. But that one, when I was just absolutely up against the wall on that one, and just thinking, I'm going to be struggling here, I'm going to be selling a kidney, kids are going to be taken off me and we're going to be sleeping in a house with no slates on the roof. But thankfully, none of that happens. Still got my kidneys, still got my kids and the roof above our heads. So yeah, happy days.
Absolutely. There's always this question about what's the worst that can happen. And I agree with you in terms of risk taking. It's interesting. And as we become more mature, sorry, go on.
I'm going to jump in on that one. That is a word, that is a sentence that I never, ever, ever say. Anyone in my team, they'll talk to you about it and they'll go, I can't believe you asked him that. Now, there's a huge difference in that sentence you just asked me. I can't say those words. They're not in my vocabulary. I ask myself this constantly, numerous times a day, as I do with my team, as I do with my friends. What is the best that can happen? What is the best that can happen? You just asked me then, what was the reverse to that one? Words I never say. Because you're already putting yourself on the back foot. Negative connotation. You're thinking, right, I'm not, right. Those words you said, I can't say the words. You're going to go, right, okay, if that, you don't start free thinking, and it's not just thinking outside the box, it's acting outside the box. It is doing everything you can. What is the best? What is the best that can happen? The best that happen is it works. It's successful. Best that can happen. Ask it all the time. I only employ people that I could invite to my house, where my wife would make a beautiful meal, that I could pour them a nice glass of wine and make them a nice soft drink, that I could jump on a flight with them, go to a conference, have a coffee with them in the morning, or a drink at the end of the day. Same with my suppliers. If I could do that, if I can ask myself those 4 questions all the time, then we're going to get on really well. They're going to get on well with the rest of my team. I'm not that interested about how much the supply is going to cost me. I'm not interested really about the deliverables. If I get on with them, then they will make it work. And I'll talk to them all the time is what's the best that can happen. And if they say that other sentence, the one I can't say, it's just putting you on the back foot. And it's all about your top 2 inches. That's the conversation. You speak with yourself to yourself more than anybody else on the planet. All day, every day. And if you have that dialogue that's positive, what's the best that can happen? What's the best that can happen? What's the best that can happen? Instilled into you, then I honestly believe that you're going to be luckier in life, more successful, more passionate about it, going to enjoy it more, wake up with a smile on your face and go to bed the same way. That smile's still there as well.
Love that. Thanks for interrupting me with that. No, it's a really important point that you made. And building on that, let's think about where we are right now in terms of our careers. So you've got a lot of years under your belt. Obviously you've got a lot of experience in different businesses, and sounds like an exciting, year or two coming up with AI, which we'll go into in a few minutes. But in terms of you looking now forward and looking at the next 5 to 10 years as a leader of multiple businesses and potentially movements, whatever it is you're doing, what do you know already that you're going to find most challenging about you as a leader?
I don't look that far ahead, because if
The next 12 months. The next 12 months.
Okay, because if it's too far ahead, you don't enjoy the now. And there's a lot of people do. A lot of people dwell on in the past, or when I do this, when I do that, when this happens. But when's that when? There's no finishing line for it. So enjoy that moment. It's the next 12 months. I'm going to walk to the North Pole.
Really what are you going to find most difficult, though, as a leader? As a leader, what are you going to find most difficult about the way that you lead right now? And what's coming up for you in the next 12 months in terms of your challenges. What are you still going to find difficult?
It's funny, this challenges, and I'll ask people that. So, what are your 2 biggest challenges in 6 or 12 months ahead? I'll just refer back to what's the best that can happen. So I'm involved in this AI business at the moment. I'm going to be ferocious to make sure that this is successful. So I'm going to put everything behind it. So I'm looking at all the positives about it, and a positive will always ride out the negative of it. I'm going to instill into my team that we are all going to excel. We are going to be exceptional at every single part of this one. It's going to be simple and easy for every single person on the planet to use. People are going to enjoy using these products. And the team are going to be, go back to that, passionate, enthusiastic about it. And I will give them every single tool for them to be better than they think they can be, and in less time they can imagine. And if we do that, completely unstoppable, and we'll be successful with it. And I know we will be. So the biggest challenge at the moment is I'd say getting people to believe, we can do this. We'll do it together. I'm not going to put a single obstacle in your way. I'm not even going to put a speed bump in. I'm going to make sure that road ahead It's clear, it's bright, the road's in immaculate condition. There's no potholes in it. It's nice and light. It's going to be gently downhill, so you don't even have to work that hard to get up it. And we'll do all that I can to make sure that we get to where we want to be, and I say quicker than we can imagine.
We're coming towards the end of our time together, Guy, but I have one last question for you. And it is important as we do look forward a little bit. So I know you don't look forward too much, but I'm going to challenge you a little bit here. And it's more around legacy. So at some point, you and I are not going to be here. Okay. But
Yep.
Once we've gone, what legacy do you hope that you would have left behind?
I think really with the family and the kids, I want them to say top husband, great dad. No more forwards than that. Good mate, and that's what that's all it can be. Yeah, the huge 200-meter high gold statue that I'll fund for myself and put in the centre of Knutsford. That's a bit of a vanity project, but yeah, good dad, top bloke, great mate. God, we miss him. He couldn't have done any more in his life, and could have done any more in my life. Yeah, I think I can do, but I've got the ability to do that in the future. So I'm just going to cram it in there, do as much as you can.
Super. I have got one more question, Guy, because it is important. I think the people that have listened to this and resonate with the story and feel the energy that you've got for life in that sense. It's really interesting. Branson said recently, I think, that every single human being on the planet has the ability to display preneurial prowess, whether you're an entrepreneur that's working within a corporate and actually having these innovative ideas and it's almost there, or an entrepreneur like you where actually go and do it outside. So if you've got an entrepreneur out there now that's working in a corporate somewhere and actually later in life, rather than you doing it early in life, probably wants to go and start something and take a risk and do it, thinking, well, what's the best can happen? Mm-hmm. What one piece of advice would you give them out there now in terms of the next step?
I work with people, like this. A lot of people in the military who are, you employ someone from the military, they're fantastic because you give them a task to do it. They do it perfectly well. It's fantastic. But anything out of their lane, they might struggle a little bit with. And if you're going to go on your own, you will have fantastic days, but you will have a lot of tough times as well, because 95% of the time you're panicking about your cash flow. And the other 5% of the time you should be panicking about it. You need to have an idea, you need to have a business plan, but speak to people that have been there, seen it and done it. I'd love to have someone who, can put your arm around me, this is the idea, what would you do? How can I make this be successful? Most people out there, they're good people, they're wonderful people, they like to help. And, if you go out there, get as much knowledge as you can and start sooner than you think, because you'll always put it off. I want to make sure, I want to get my first flat. I'm saving up for a deposit. I want to get married. I might want to have kids. All of a sudden, you're in your mid-60s and life's gone by. Never start a business when it's at 100%, because you'll never get to 100%. You start a business when you're at 50, 60, 70%. Find a way around it. You'll get there. Believe in yourself. Get someone to believe in you as well. Boost that confidence up. You can't get confidence on an app. You can't download it from an independent shop or going online to an app and getting it delivered that day or the following day. People will be there to help and support you. If you've got that idea, go for it. Give it everything. Make sure that you get over that line and be successful with it. And you'll get support from people around you. What's the best that can happen if you do it?
Absolutely. And on that note, Guy, really, really good to have you on the show today. I really appreciate all the stories that you've been telling us. I appreciate the vulnerability as well about your childhood. Really appreciate that. And thanks once again for coming on the show today.
A pleasure. Really nice talking to you, Andrew.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader. You can access all previous episodes of the show at confessionsofaSuccessfulLeader.com. If you are interested in finding out more about conscious leadership and self-coaching, just type in Andrew Tallents into LinkedIn or your favorite browser, and you'll find my contact details and all the content that you need. Until next time, don't forget to stay present, curious, and above all, conscious.